Ohayou gozaimasu. Konnichiwa. Welcome everybody to the stream. Today we're going to be looking at suru and naru. So I would say this is a bit of an advanced lesson. This is kind of aimed at the various Year 12 students who are going to be taking their Japanese exam at the end of the year, so final year of high school. And I've got to say, if you've watched my previous videos about how to do well in Japanese exams, this is one of the grammar points that I brought up in that video. It's super important. I can almost guarantee you it's going to come up multiple times on the exam, and it's going to come up in all the sections. So sometimes you'll find grammar is kind of confined to either only the listening or only the reading. Especially the trickier parts of grammar are sometimes only confined to the reading comprehension part. But this is something that is going to be pretty pervasive throughout the whole exam. So obviously it's very good if you're across it, because you don't really want to be thinking about how this works in Japanese. It's not conceptually difficult, but it does take a bit of practice to get used to. So you do want to be comfortable with it way before. I mean, really, ideally, you want to be already comfortable with it if you're in Year 12 already. You really want to have kind of got this under wraps by the end of Year 11, but perhaps you didn't learn it in Year 11 and now you're only learning it now. But anyway, we'll go through it and we'll look at some various ways that this is used in Japanese, and we'll see the types of sentences that it's going to come up with in our exam. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk about something quickly about last week's lesson. So I was doing JLPT prep last lesson, and I was looking at the sample test. Now, I believe it was N4, okay, and it was I think it was the last question of the reading comprehension, and I got it wrong. I gotta say, I did rush. I did rush through it a bit too quickly. But I think it's important to go back over why I picked the wrong answer. And this website's very slow. But it's a good illustration of what the sort of things that JLPT is going to throw your way. All right, it's going to throw certain things in order to trick you. Okay, they really do come up with these certain questions and they phrase them certain ways, but you can rest assured that there is always a correct answer that we can pick out. Okay, I believe it's this one. Alright. Okay. Alright. So I read through this last week, so I'm not going to read through it again, but I believe I ended up choosing this one, right? Yeah, okay, which is wrong. Okay, so why is this one wrong? And I was kind of confused between these two. Which one should I choose? And I didn't actually go back and reread over this since the last lesson, but I did think about it, and I was thinking, well, how did I get that wrong? Obviously, I missed some vital piece of information. So let's have a look here. Can I zoom in? Yeah. It's a bit weird. Anyway, it's as good as we're going to get. Alright, so we were able to get rid of 4 and 3, so we did come down to a 50-50. Okay? 4 and 3. So it's between 2. So what do we have? What is 2 saying? Well, tonari no hito ni nanika chisana mono wo watasu. Alright, so watasu, this is to cross, but also it kind of means to give to someone, right? Watasu, this is our intransitive verb. So the person next door, some small thing, we give it to them. What does this say? Chisana mono wo motte 近所に挨拶する. So basically grab, get some kind of gift and 挨拶, alright, greetings, go and basically introduce yourself to people in the neighborhood. I mean, now looking at it, I was like, I can't believe I didn't choose one. It's obviously one. But what tricked me is I went back and I was rereading, right? And what does it say here? アパートやマンションでは自分の部屋 confuse me there 自分の部屋の隣に住んでいる人や上の部屋と下の部屋に住んでいる人などに挨拶をします. Okay, so this is really the key one, and I have to admit I only read this bit. When I reread it, I kind of read up to here. I thought, okay, well there's my answer. Okay, next door people. But look what this grammar is telling us. It's saying ya. Okay, we've got a ya here. And ya, what does that tell us? It says, well, there's kind of a list of things here. One of the pieces of information on this list is apartments. The other one is mansion, which is very similar to apartments. It's not a mansion as we would think in English. Sorry, just one sec. Just gonna do something here real quick. I might have to do that again. But anyway, technical issues. Okay, so it's saying apato ya mansion dewa. So this ya is saying, well, there's all these things on this list, and these are just a sample of the things on this list. Take him calls this the incomplete list particle. Alright, not a easy phrase to remember, but it's a pretty accurate representation of what this does. So what this is saying is, in this kind of specific case of houses, well, I guess dwellings, I guess we should say, like apartments and mansions, okay, and what do these have in common? Well, they're people are living next to each other, above and below each other. It's not really a house where you've just kind of got neighborhoods, right, and then there's people just kind of living next to each other. So they're just kind of showing you, like, this process, it's not this kind of ancient tradition which says, well, if you live in a house, you have to go next door to the person. What it's saying is, you're supposed to introduce yourself to your kind of immediate neighborhood, alright, to the people who live around you, and say hello, and whatever, give a gift, and say, yoroshiku onegai shimasu, look after me. So this specific passage is kind of saying, well, if you live in an apartment then your obligation is not really just to the people who live immediately to the left or to the right of you. It's also going to say, well, the people above you, and particularly the people below you, if you walk on the floors, I had this when I have lived in various apartments, you can hear the people above you all the time. They're walking around, they're dropping all kinds of things. So it's kind of saying, well, it's not just the people who live in houses who have to do this to their neighborhood, there's also people in apartments. So it's not, that's why 2 is not really correct, because although this number 2 question is, you could say it's in this passage, it's saying, well, you should go give something to the people who live next door to you. If we think about this passage, it's like, well, that's correct, but, we could obviously also say that this bit is correct, because here it doesn't specifically say to give this gift, alright? It says take a gift and greet your neighbors. But obviously the implication is that you're giving them the gift. You don't just go over there and show it to them, alright? You're also giving it to them at the same time. So this is the more appropriate answer, okay? When we look at these two things. Why? Well, because we've got another section which says, where is it? Yeah, so どんなものを持っていくはあんまり心配しなくてもいいです。Okay, so どんなもの, so it doesn't matter what kind of thing. 持っていくかはあんまり心配しなくては. Alright, so don't worry about what you have to bring to them. As long as you bring something. I mean, they gave some examples of the type of gifts that would be appropriate. Towels, soap, sweets, Japanese lollies, whatever. So it's not the value of the gift or something like that. The whole point is you use it as an opportunity to give them something and to say hello. So it's not just the gift giving, which is important, which is why this is wrong, and that's why this one is correct. Okay, it's these 2 points, I would say, which really put that point home. So I was rushing a bit, and I did actually, I don't know why I picked it. Here, in hindsight, it's so obvious, but yeah, it's mainly that you've got kind of the choice between 2 options here, and there is a better choice that you could have taken. Alright, so that's how you know that this is better. Alright, should have got that the first time. Okay. Alright. Alright. So, that's just something I wanted to quickly talk about last week, or this week. Alright. Now it's got a bit of a spiel here. We've got the link to the Google Doc, so this document I'm looking at now is it's just publicly shared. Anyone can access it. You can't edit it, but you can see what I've written and you can copy from it. So I would recommend everyone look at that Google Doc to follow along with the lesson. And I run Japanese lessons, so these are kind of, I guess you could say they're group lessons on YouTube. A lot of this is just to kind of, I get some questions asked very commonly, so I'm just trying to put a lot of lessons into videos. So if someone asks me a question, I can just say, hey, I've done a video on this, you can watch this, and if you still don't understand that, we can do a lesson. But I get a lot of similar questions, and so I figured it's good to get some stuff digitally. But also the main thing I'm doing these videos is you can kind of see, well, this is what the type of lesson you will get if you do online lessons with me. Now I will make them a bit more tailored to you if you have specific questions. Also, after a few minutes of talking to you, I will understand about your level of Japanese, and then there's kind of a progression that I like to take every student through. There's all these certain things you have to know, for example, if you want to get to the speaking part or whatever. But I have a kind of a little journey for all my students planned in my head, and so it'll be a lot more tailored to you if you do the lessons. But at least you'll see this is the kind of quality you will get, audio quality, video quality, if you do a live lesson. Because I am streaming this live, so it's very similar to if we did a Hangout or a Skype call. So I put them here at $50 an hour. I'm actually thinking of changing this, to be honest, to $40 an hour. And we can do $70 for 2 hours plus. Okay, and I could do anything, alright, if you're a total beginner, if you're in university, anything in between, and no matter what your goals are. Some people just want to speak, some people would like to be able to write a bit better, a lot of people just want help with their exams. So anything to do with Japanese, you ask me, you tell me to do it, I'll do it. It's pretty straightforward. So just please email me, and we can talk about it. Okay. Alright. So what are we going to be looking at today? Alright, well, that's too big. We're going to be looking at a bit of a interesting concept in Japanese. It's used quite a lot. But we're going to talk about this suru and naru, okay? So these are our verbs. I mean, I guess I don't really have to explain it to you. If this lesson's going to be used to you, you should probably know what suru and naru means. If you're struggling with what suru and naru means, like that they're verbs, for example, this probably isn't the lesson for you. Don't want to be too condescending there, but you've got a bit of learning to do before we get there. Alright. So, when we use suru, by the way, this is taken from Take Him's website. Let me just pop a link to this here. Not really sure why this looks so weird. Just give me 1 second. This is the old one. There we go. I think this is the one we want. Yeah. Let me just put it in the chat. there we go. So our object particle, okay, so this is our o kanji, not kanji, hiragana, o. Okay, with suru, because it's usually done to something else, okay? This is just our basic usage of suru, okay? You can look back over my verbs, part 1 and part 2 if you are confused about that. But, you know, we're talking about how does a verb act on a noun, basically. And we'll see that when we start using ni, that this changes it quite dramatically, okay? And it's talking about kind of becoming things or going with things. And as for naru, because this becoming is not an action to done something else, but it's, you know, it's what the thing itself is changing, that's why we need to use ni for both of these. Alright, so where do we start? Where do we start? Well, we can talk about some kind of basic ability things here. So, we can say, for example, Kare no nihongo ga jouzu ni natta. Kare no nihongo ga jouzu ni just put that into kanji. Oops. Can you not do that anymore? Maybe not in Google Docs. Jouzu ni natta. Okay? So if we kind of ignore this ni natta part, this is just a statement of fact, right? Kare no nihongo ga jouzu desu. Right? If we put a des on the end to make it polite. So his Japanese is good. His Japanese is good. But the change we're making here, ni natta. So this is our past form of naru, okay? And just a bit of revision. Alright, naru. How do we make this into the past form? Well, it depends if we want to be polite or not. So most people who are watching this are probably going to be much more familiar with this one, narimashita. But you really want to get good at the plain form. Because what if you want to say, for example, I think that his Japanese has gotten good? Then you would need to use the plain form, and the think would have to be in the polite form. But anyway, how do we get there? Well, naru. All right, this is going to be a problem for us because it's not immediately clear whether this is a ru verb or an u verb. Okay, and this is pretty much the question we have to ask ourselves every time we're going to make a change to a verb. But we look at this and we say naru. But when we look at this must form, which is pretty much what I think I recommend you guys do if you're unsure about if it's a ru verb or a nu verb, the fact that we got a re here tells us that this ru has changed. It's changed from a ru to a re. Because if we look at a ru verb example, because we can tell, basically I'm saying that this change, this re, tells us this is an u verb. But if we look at a ru verb, okay, tabemashita, the ru has just disappeared. Okay, and if we go back to our ru verb u verb rules, this tells us that this is a ru verb. It's not taberimashita, just tabemashita. And consequently, this is not namashita, it's narimashita. So this re is a giveaway that this is an u verb. So how do we do this? Well, we kind of have to recall our tef form rule if that's easier. But basically, u verbs that end in ru, tsu, or u, any of these three endings, they're going to end up like this, a little tsu and a ta when we make our past form, natta. Okay. So kare no nihongo ga jouzu ni natta. So kare no nihongo ga jouzu ni narimashita. So his Japanese has become good. Okay, so this is kind of implying that before this, his Japanese was not very good. But it's become better, I guess. You know, it's improved. Okay. What's another one? Okay, the other thing that we use this ni and naru a lot with is when we're talking about aspirations, particularly goals or career or something like this. Okay, so we've got a pretty similar sentence. Okay, so 私は医者になった。Okay. Alright, isha. Definitely a year 12 vocabulary if I've ever seen one. Isha. Okay, so we just, again we could separate this out and say watashi wa isha desu. I am a doctor. But isha ni natta. Okay, so with just these nouns, just like we saw with jozu, which is a na adjective. Na adjectives and nouns, we're both just putting ni at the end. We don't need anything else. So watashi wa isha ni natta. I became a doctor. Okay. Now we don't always have to use past form with this, alright? We can use kind of the present tense to talk about future aspirations. Okay. So again, this kanji, definitely year 12 kanji. This is what's called a receptive kanji. You have to be able to read it. We got you may. You may. Alright. This is a really good word to remember, the onyomi, so both of these kanji, by the way. This kanji means arimasu, okay, which our existence verb. And may, this means a name. So I used to think it's like you have a name, which means you're famous. You've made a name for yourself. Okay, you may. Very important to these kind of kango, right? These kanji compounds. Really important to memorize them, and then you can later on. What's a good one? Alright, we could have, for example, meishi, which is a business card. Basically words like this can really help you remember the onyomi for a lot of these words. Okay, so watashi wa yumei na hito ni naru. Okay, so this is kind of like a statement of intent. Okay, it's like I will become a famous person. Kind of this projecting, I guess, or self-realization, self-actualization, whatever that technique is called. Okay, it's like you repeat this phrase to yourself, and then one day, it'll happen. So, I will become a famous person. Okay, so this probably shouldn't be causing much problem for people who are at the year 12 level. Okay, this is pretty straightforward usage of verbs. The only difference here is we're using our ni. Okay, it's not using o. So this is what naru is used for, right? We often talk about future. So what about suru? What happens with suru when we start using our ni and suru with certain things? Well, this is a kind of a set way to talk about whether you want something or that you're going to go with something, right? So, watashi wa hamburger to sarada ni shimasu. Watashi wa hamburger to sarada ni shimasu. Okay, so it's really saying I'll go with the hamburger and salad. Alright, so this is a really easy way to remember how you can talk about ordering food. Okay, so just that you've been looking there at the menu and you try and decide, and then like, oh, nani o tabemasu ka? What we eat? Watashi wa hamburger to sarada ni shimasu. So I'll go with the hamburger and salad. Okay, Takim makes a bit of a comment here. It's like, some people might think this is strange. It's like, I will do the hamburger and salad, I guess, if we're going to translate this literally. And then Takim just points out, so well, why do we say go with the hamburger and salad in English? I mean, where are you going with these things? You're not going anywhere. They're coming to you, if anything. So, it's always good to kind of get a bit of a reality check on Japanese and English. Okay. So we can just kind of very generically just say something like this. Kore ni suru. Okay, I'll go with this thing. I want this thing. Kore ni suru. I'll go with that. Alright, so really important to remember this type of phrasing. It's just a very simple shorthand way to talk about wanting something. Okay. Now this is when we're going to start getting into the tricky part. Okay, this is where people start to have some doubts and start to kind of make some mistakes with, especially the translating part. And I feel like a lot of people have issues creating these sentences. But once you can start to use adjectives really well with your naru and suru, this is when your Japanese is really going to start to get to the next level. And this is the specific area that I highlighted in my Doing Well in Year 12 Exams video. So what am I talking about? Well, when we talk about adjectives, okay, where we're not going to have as easy a time as we just did with our nouns and our not adjectives. Okay? So, I guess the main thing to keep in mind is that when we're talking about adjectives, we actually use adverbs. Alright, we're making the change to the adjective to turn it into an adverb. Now, maybe a lot of these words, like adverbs, people might be like, yeah, I've heard that word before, I really don't know what it means. Okay, it does what it says on the side of the tin. Alright, adds to the verb. Okay, so we're just using adjectives to describe verbs in a different way. So, for example, the first one we're going to say is, you've grown from last year. You've gotten taller since last year. So, you've become taller since last year. It's not that you've just become something, you've become taller. Okay? So that tall is the adjective and taller is the adverb, and it's saying, well, it's the becoming. You've become taller. It's describing the growth of your body, saying it's gotten taller. So this is really what an adverb is. Alright, it adds to a verb. Now, how do we do this with adjectives? Well, it's pretty simple. It's like every other adjective rule. So, takai is our first one. What do we do? Well, we just replace that with a ku. Okay, takai, takaku. That's really all we're doing. Okay. Now, I want to point out that it's not just these adjectives section that we're suddenly using adverbs. If we are in a way using we are kind of treating our nouns and not adjectives. Actually, I should just say not adjectives here. We're already using these as adverbs if we look at these in depth. Okay, so it's not like we're suddenly using adverbs, by the way. They're not strictly speaking adverbs, but it's close enough. Okay, so let's say you've gotten taller. Okay, so this phrase, you've gotten taller, this doesn't really translate too literally well from Japanese to English, okay? So in Japanese, to say someone's tall, you say se ga takai. And the opposite is se ga hikui. 背が高い、背が低い. Alright? Now, se kind of means your back. It's kind of like from your hips to your shoulders. This is your se. But it's just kind of a set phrase to talk about how someone is tall or short, so don't worry about the literal translation so much. But we got 去年から, so from last year, 背が高くなったね. Okay? So it's not like you're growing in front of them or you will grow. It's they're saying, well, there's a change. Last year you were this tall, now you're this tall, so you've gotten taller since last year. 高くなったね. Now notice here that we don't actually use our ni anymore. We used our ni for our nouns and not adjectives, but the ni disappears. And the main reason it disappears is that we don't really need to express that relationship that ni does, because that's what this adverb does. It's the adverb is affecting this verb. Okay, so this ku is kind of playing the role of ni now. So just remember, we don't need to put this in there, and this point is really important. Okay, really important, and it's gonna be important. For example, when we like for example in that video I did on doing well in Year 12 exams, when we talk about yoku natta and things like that. Okay, so it can be confusing if this point of why this is written like this is lost on you. Trust me, it's going to be really, Year 12 is going to be kind of confusing to you. So you really want to just practice making these. Okay. Let's have a look at another one. Alright, so I will become stronger because I am exercising. So 運動しているから we should really use the kanji here. Alright, this is another receptive kanji. For Year 12, you have to know how to read 運動. And also 強い, this next kanji. This is also an example of one. So 運動しているから強くなる. Okay, so this is kind of combining some other bits of grammar. So kara is because. So because I am doing exercise, okay? 強くなる. I will become stronger. Okay, so just notice it doesn't always have to be past form, okay? We can talk about future potential, I guess, if we want to think about it that way. So 強くなる. Become stronger. Okay? So that's another kind of little shortcut you can do when you're making your adverbs. A lot of the time, this is what they're going to look like, okay? We're going to get tall, and then taller. Strong, stronger. Yes, it's very rough. It doesn't work all the time. But often just kind of think about adding ER. Okay? And about ER. So, 運動しているから強くなる. Alright. That's another way we can use this. Actually, this is basically a tama. I would say it's better to learn it if you can fit it in, but it's not super common. Okay, so 勉強をたくさんしたから頭が良くなった. Okay, and this is a perfect example of something which will trip a lot of people out. Okay, so 勉強たくさんしたから. So, I did lots of study, so 頭が良くなった. Alright, this is again a bit of a set phrase, but we can say 頭がいい if we're saying someone is smart. So basically their head is good. Atama is head. 頭がいい. This person is smart. Okay. And so the negative would be atama ga yokunai. Alright, remember we've got a bit of an exception for this E word. Atama ga yokunai. And again, when we're making the adverb, yoku natta. Yoku natta. Alright, so because of that past form, well, the two past forms, we can translate it like this. So, I studied a lot. So, I became smarter. Alright, so it's already happened. Atama ga yoku natta. I've already become smarter. Okay, so they're kind of talking about it, something which has happened in the past. Alright, so you can see that this is very useful. Very, very useful. Alright. So that's kind of nouns, E and nut adjectives. But this is the fun part, as far as I'm concerned. Now we get on to verbs. So verbs, this is definitely the area where it's going to be, this is going to be the most common area that this grammar will probably cause issues for people. Alright, and why is that? Well, because we've already been dealing with naru and suru, which are already verbs. So how do we join these two verbs together to say that this verb kind of acts on the other verb? Can't really do it like with adverbs like we did with just using ni. We will continue to use ni, by the way, but we're going to do something a little bit different. Alright, so what we do is we just kind of squeeze a generic noun in there. Okay. Now this also is how we deal with verb clauses as well later on. I'm not sure if I'll ever do a video on that, but I do sometimes run through verb clauses with my Year 12 students because we'll see some example in here, but they are a little bit of a tricky concept sometimes. But it's just a verb clause is just a little mini sentence. So you say, for example, eating sushi is the thing that I like. You know, so eating sushi. This is a little verb clause. All right. So the main two generic nouns we're going to use here are koto and that's not really going to line up and yo ni. Not that yo. Okay, yo ni. Now again, this yo ni is a receptive kanji for Year 12. And you have to know to be able to read this two different ways. First of all, it's sama. So for example, if we have kami-sama, alright, sama is this very polite way of referring to people, and you only really use it for a very few select examples. So for example, you know, it's rude enough to ever refer to yourself as son, but when you start referring to yourself as sama, this is when you're, you know, megalomaniac style. I'm not sure if this really happens in real life much, but I know, for example, in some, you know, the anime, these kind of evil characters who are in control or whatever, they'll sometimes refer themselves as ore-sama. Okay, a bit of a high opinion of themselves. But sama, okay, so this is one way we can read this. So kami-sama, okyaku-sama. Really don't worry about this ore-sama. It's let me just put it this way: if this is ever coming up in a Year 12 exam, I don't even know what to say. It'd be a very, very strange world we live in when that happens. But koto, okay, you guys have probably come across this a lot. This koto word, alright? This just kind of means thing. And this your, we read this as your ni, by the way. Okay, and this means appearance. So if you remember the lesson I did on appearance and hearsay, it's that same yoni. Okay, so they're not really anything specific, alright? This is why they're generic nouns, but it enables us to use this to attach to the verb, and then we can use this suru and naru to describe that thing. Okay. Now there is some very subtle references here to the past grammar points we've just done. Some subtle differences, I guess I should say. So let's have a look at this. Oops. Okay, so again, kaigai. This is a kanji you have to be able to read, not necessarily write, although I would really recommend you learn to write these as soon as possible, especially umi. But I mean, both of them are very, very useful. But they also help you, again, just like you did earlier, kaigai helps us remember that this is pretty much always read as kai in our onyomi, and this is read as gai. So for example, gai kokujin. It's one you people may be familiar with. You people. Alright. Iku koto ni natta. Alright. So what's happening here? Iku koto ni natta. Well, if we were going to translate this, we would have to kind of say, well, what's this doing? And before we get there, why don't we say, well, what's this doing? Kaigai ni iku koto. I mean, it's basically the act of going overseas, I guess, if we want to try and capture what this koto is doing. But if we delete even this, kaigai ni iku, so go overseas. Kaigai ni iku koto, like the act of going overseas. Kaigai iku koto ni natta. So what this kind of tells me is that this person has not really decided to go overseas. Okay, this would be, for example, maybe someone who's working in a company. All right, and their boss comes up to them and says, "Hey, you're doing really well in you've really turned around your this section of the business that you're working in. Okay, you've taken it from the bottom selling store to the top selling store. I don't know. We've just opened a branch up in China. Okay, so we're going to send you over there, and you're going to do the same thing with China. Okay, so that this person, this employee, hasn't really chosen to go overseas. It's just someone else has kind of said, hey, you know, you got to go overseas. You got to help us out with this new store. We'll just kind of assume that there's no coercion, and the employee says, all right, cool, fine, I'll do it. But they haven't really decided on it, right? The boss has kind of given them an option and saying, hey, you got to go overseas and help us out. And like, okay, so kaigai ni iku koto ni natta. So, I mean, the way Take Him translate this is it's been decided that I will go abroad. All right, so it's kind of saying there's some, your agency is a bit lost here. Okay, you don't have the choice. It's someone else has kind of picked this. All right, so this is, you can see already, this is super handy. You know, we can the kind of this causative and this quite tricky serareru, like maseru, all these kind of tricky passive causative forms that you learn about in kind of second, third year university Japanese. You can get a very similar effect just by doing this, talking about making someone do something. You can kind of get this same thing out here, just with some very straightforward grammar. Alright, what about this one? Now here, this is where I think this is a sentence we should really, really focus on. If nothing else out of this lesson, really focus on this one. Okay, this is our usage of your. Alright, and like I said, this is what's going to come up in your exam, almost guaranteed. And not just Year 12 exams, by the way. JLPT uses this all the time. Okay, it's a very integral part of understanding Japanese to be able to pass, and I mean P-A-R-S-E, pass these type of sentences in your head. So, again, all these kanji really useful, especially niku, but mainichi niku o taberu you ni natta. Okay, so let's just ignore all the stuff that comes, the you ni natta. Okay, so what's this? Mainichi niku o taberu. Mainichi niku o taberu. So this is just saying every day I eat meat. Okay, pretty standard statement of fact. Mainichi niku o taberu. But we're doing more here. 毎日肉を食べるようになった。毎日肉を食べるようになった。So it's like it became and also, by the way, you want to think of this yoni as kind of doing something in a way that X. So it became in a doing basically eating meat every day. 食べるようになった. So this person, before they kind of made this decision, they weren't eating every day. They weren't eating every day. Meat, sorry, I should say. They weren't eating meat every day. And then something has happened in their life. We don't know what. I mean, we could come up with a million different reasons. Maybe perhaps this person lived, you know, that their family is vegetarian, and then they, I don't know, whatever, started going to a boarding school. And the boarding school offers meat with every meal. So this person starts eating meat, you know, every day. So it's kind of like the situation has changed. It's become in a way that now I eat meat every day. I guess if we want to, I mean, we're going to have to use liberal brackets. Alright, there's always going to be some implications here. But 食べるようになった. So it seems like it's become eating meat every day. But になった. So it has become. Alright? So you're going to see these two come up all the time. ようになる. Alright? And this, like I said, this type of sentence, vital. You really need to be able to understand what this sentence is telling you. Alright, but we're going to look at quite a few examples because this can be tricky sometimes. Okay, so now we've got the same sentence that we just looked at, but now we've changed the verb. So instead of the naru or natta, we've got suru or shita. Alright? Now the implication here is that this person has had a bit of a say now, alright? So it's not like this boss saying, hey, you gotta go overseas and work in the factory and make it better over there. They're saying, hey, I chose to go overseas. So 海外に行くことにした. Alright, so this is really not that different from the hamburger to sarada ni shimasu. It's the same thing, you know, it's the ni shita, ni suru. It implies there's some kind of choice there. So 海外に行くことにした. So I decided I will go abroad. Okay, so we got some agency back finally. Alright, I might as well just copy this. Okay, and then again, if we took the same sentence and just changed the natta with the shita, 毎日肉を食べるようにした. Okay, so now again, there's some personal choice coming here. But notice there's quite a big difference in the in the description here. So remember, we've got personal choice. So I decided. Okay, now take him says I will try to eat meat every day. This is also fine. So 食べるようにした. Okay. So what is this kind of talking about? Well, this is kind of like, you know, this person has made some choice and is saying, you know, maybe, I don't know, they've got anemia or they've got some condition and they've had some medical advice which has said, hey, the iron in your blood is pretty low. Creatine, I don't know, having some issues with creatine. You got to eat more red meat. Alright, so then they're like, okay, I'll eat some more red meat. I'll set some reminders on my phone. I'll buy more meat, all these kind of things. So 毎日肉を食べるようにした. So like, you know, they set daily goals in the morning. Wake up and say, alright, by 6 p.m. today, I'm going to have had one serving of meat. Alright, so they're making a choice. taberu you ni shita. But again, this yo ni is saying I'm doing things in a way that X. Let me just put that up here. Okay, it's I know it's kind of clumsy, but whenever you hear this yo ni, really kind of think, hey, this person's attempting to make some change. Maybe the change has been forced upon them, but some change is happening. You're doing things in a different way as to achieve something, which is whatever the verb clause is before this yo ni. This is what you're talking about. Is the changing thing. Yeah, make an effort towards. Actually, is how Take Him talks about it. I think any of these phrases works well, and it's good to keep them all in your head because sometimes this one-to-one translation can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so how can we take this even further? Well, we can start even modifying this verb into the potential form. Okay, now I haven't quite done a video on potential form, but this again is definitely Year 12 grammar. But it's pretty simple for our potential form. So for our root verbs, let's put a title here actually. So we remove the ru from the root verb and replace it with, and this people always struggle to pronounce this, and even Japanese people, as we'll see in a second, rareru. Okay, and as always, our u verb rule is always a little bit trickier than our ru verb rule, but we basically change our u verb to the e vowel equivalent, and then add ru. Alright, so if we want to look at some examples here, of course, we have to go with taberu. Alright, so what are we doing? Remove the ru and add rareru. Taberareru. Okay, now having said that, a lot of Japanese people can't be bothered saying rareru, so a lot of them just say tabereru. Tabereru. It's technically wrong, but it's just so much of a mouthful. Even Japanese people can't be bothered with these three R sounds in a row. U verb. So if we take, for example, iku, this is always a really good one. Okay, so we have to change our u verb to an e vowel equivalent. So the ku is the u verb here. So we change it to an e vowel. So all we're doing is thinking of our hiragana chart. I just bring this up quickly because this is important. Everything's important. Everything's important. This is particularly important though. Let me just find my hiragana chart. One second. Alright, so we got our hiragana chart. So we're just dealing with ku, right? Ku. So if we're going to go to our e vowel equivalent, we're just going to our e column, so this whole column. So ke. So ku becomes ke. Alright. And then what do we do? Well, we just add ru. Okay? So ikeru. Alright, so eat, can eat, go, can go. Now there are some other things we always have to be aware of with potential verbs, but the main one is that our particles are going to change. So instead of using o, we now have to use ga. Alright, now the reason why that is, it's not important right now, but just keep in mind that the particles do change. Okay, I will do a whole thing on potential verbs eventually. I've got lots of videos I'd like to do. We'll knock them off. We'll get there. So, this is pretty much the last thing we're going to do. Then we're going to call it. So, 日本に来て寿司が食べられるようになった。Okay, so I came to Japan, and just this is a really good usage of the te form, by the way. 日本に来て So I came to Japan. 寿司が食べられるようになった。Okay, so the reason I should point out, the reason why this is a good usage of the te form is because this is one of the really important usages of te form that I see a lot of students, I think they're just not aware of it, or they don't think to use it. But te is not just a way to join sentences, which is a lot of the times what we do. What's implied here is a sequence of events. This is a really important thing to keep in mind. So there is a bit of an elapsing of time since when they came to Japan and when this next thing happened, which is became able to eat sushi. It's not like, came to Japan and immediately it happened. It's kind of saying, well, I came to Japan and then since then I've been able to come to eat sushi. So I guess we could translate like this. I became able to eat the sushi desu. Alright. So, after coming to Japan, so again, it's implying that some time has passed since coming to Japan. It's not just an immediate thing. So, I became able to eat sushi. Alright. So, we have taberareru. So, became, able to eat. Yo ni natta. Alright. So, again, it's yo ni naru. It's kind of saying you didn't really have a choice in it per se, or you weren't completely in control of it. This just kind of happened because of whatever factors, alright? So for example, maybe you just started eating fish every day, or you started eating rice every day, you started getting a lot more soy sauce, your shoyu. Maybe some friends took you to kaiten sushi, alright? Really big deal in Japan, the, let's go what it's called, the conveyor belt sushi stuff, right? Sushi train restaurant. But, you kind of got used to eating fish. I know in Australia, for example, we don't eat a whole lot of fish here. It's a lot of red meat. So a lot of people are not used to fish, and the only fish people have here is generally fish and chips, and that's not my favorite. Let me just say that. But, having fresh, raw fish is kind of a different experience for a lot of people. So it's just like little baby steps, trying sashimi, maybe, things like this, and then eventually you get to sushi with all the wasabi and all this kind of stuff. So able to eat. But taberareru you ni natta. So what this is really saying is, before this, they were not able to eat sushi. Okay? Taberare nakatta. Not able to eat. Alright, and sushi is the thing that became able to eat. Alright, again, this ga or particle thing is a thing it's a very common mistake people make, but yeah, when we have our potential form, we go to ga. But it, basically it became that I was able to eat sushi since coming to Japan. So this is a really, 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 really good sentence that I recommend a lot of people reread a few times and think about, why does this work the way it does? But it's very, very important. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay. This kanji, it's not really year 12 kanji, so don't worry about it too much. It's probably worth learning, but it's hikeru. Alright, so from hiku, to play like guitar or whatever, or piano. Most instruments are hiku. Okay, we got 1年間練習したからピアノが弾けるようになった. So, again, combining some other bits of grammar we looked at in previous videos, but 1年間練習した. So, practiced for 1 year. Kara. So, piano ga, so the piano is the thing that. hikeru you ni natta. I became able to play. Hikeru you ni natta. Okay, again, a really good usage of yo ni. It's kind of saying, well, here at least we have a reason. Here we didn't really have a reason apart from coming to Japan, but yeah, that's not real. It's kind of a reason, but there's no specifics here. Here we have a specific, right? It's I studied or whatever. I practiced for a year, and so I was able to play piano. Very wordy, but trust me, these are very common sentences in Japanese. Okay, I practiced for a year, so I became able to play piano. Alright, so whenever we're talking about some kind of changing state of affairs, always kind of think about yo ni naru. It became in a way that X. It's making an effort towards X, something like this. Alright, last one. Fuji-san. Fuji-san じゃない。Fuji-san が見える。Man, I gotta work on my Japanese typing. 見えなくなった. Alright, so just like verbs, as always, we can make them into negatives as well, right? We don't always have to be future positive, or always past. We can do negatives as well. So what we got here? Chikatetsu. Really important word. Really, really important word. We have to know this if we're going to talk about Japan, okay? This is almost guaranteed coming up in the listening. This word. Alright, this is subway. So we have chi, which is the ground, or earth or whatever. So chikyu, for example, is how we say earth, the planet. Ka, alright, we should recognize this one. This is shita, alright, below. And this is a really good word to remember that this is read as ka. Also read as ke, but ka is the main one. And tetsu, alright, this is, I always forget, it's iron, I believe. Iron. Alright, chikatetsu. We can see on the left we've got our gold or metal radical here. So chikatetsu, right, the underground iron or the underground railroad or subway. Haite, again, this is a kanji people always mess up, okay? So let's look at, I just want to look at this a little bit quickly. Whoops. Oops, did I write that wrong? Yes, I did. Okay. Hit enter. Alright, so this kanji is pretty cruel, I've got to say. It's pretty cruel. Okay. So we've got this. By the way, it's not hito. Alright, hito looks like this. You might see them stylized slightly differently, but basically when the left side's shorter, it's this kanji. When the right side's, you can't tell here, but often when you write it, people will do it like this. When the right side is longer, or when the left side is longer, then it's hito. When the right side is longer, it's haido or deru. So you get something like this, and you might go, well, how do I read this? Okay, well, alright, just think of what are these two verbs. We have hairu, and this is ieru. And this has become a bit of a dog's breakfast. But anyway, alright, hairu and ireru. I think you should always start from here. If you always find that you're reading these kanji wrong, start from this principle, okay? This is hairu, this is ireru. Hairu, ireru. Now, if we think about the must forms, like I was talking about before, again, it's getting pretty tricky to remember which one's which. But we can say that hairu, this is an u verb, okay? We can tell by this ru. Hairimasu. Hairu, hairimasu, okay? And so I would just try and remember this phrase, which is ofuro ni hairimasu. Ofuro ni hairimasu. So I will take a bath. Ofuro ni hairimasu. Right? That way you can remember that it's an u verb. Now we got ireru. Right? So hairu is to enter into. Ireru is to kind of put something in somewhere, to place something in something. Okay? And we notice here that we got a re sitting outside. Alright? We got some, this is okurigana. Alright? We got a re sitting outside. So ireru. Alright? So this is going to be the difference. So this is actually a ru verb. Iremasu. Right? The ru disappears. We got no re. So an u verb and a ru verb. But this can cause some issues. I already got it. Oops. This can cause some issues when we make conjugations. So this, whenever we see the tsu like this, all right, just remember it's this little tsu and te. Remember our te form rules: ru, u, and tsu all become little tsu and te when we make our te form. So haite, this one is. Okay, so again, this bath one we can say ofuro ni haite mo ii desu ka? Is it okay if I take a bath? Ofuro ni haite mo ii desu ka? Now this is read as irete. Okay, so put something in, right? So you could say, you know, kitta kyabetsu o fukuro ni irete kudasai. Kitta kyabetsu o fukuro ni irete kudasai. So please put the cut cabbage into the bag. Okay, that's just a random sentence I got from a dialogue I was reading earlier. Okay, but irete kudasai, put it in there. Okay, so these are looking quite different. Alright, and I know it can seem confusing, but really just go through these examples a few times until this is clear. Now, the really cruel thing about this kanji is if we think about the potential form of this verb, okay? So this is actually, well, you couldn't say this definitively, but I know because I wrote it. Alright, this is haireru. And this is just our must form up here, alright? Ireru. Not our must form, sorry. Our plain form. Ireru. You think, well, these are the same. How are you ever supposed to tell the difference? That one's read as haireru, one's read as ireru. Well, you'd have to go by context. So, for example, what did I say about the potential forms? They're going to have a ga before them. Alright? So this is, you know, because it's an u verb, what do we do? Well, we change the u verb to the eval equivalent and add ru. But the u verb was ru, which would be re, and then we add ru. So this is not, this ru and this ru are not the same ru. This re has come about because of this ru. So this ru went to re, and then we added another ru. So haireru, able to enter into. But ireru, again, it's just our this one here. So how do we make the potential form of this? I'll leave that for you guys to work out. But just remember, I told you it's a ru verb. It's a ru verb, so have a think about it. Okay, so this is haite. Alright, whenever you see this little tsu like this, it's going to be haite. So, chikatetsu ni haite, Fujisan ga mienaku natta. Alright. By the way, this is mieru, by the way. Mieru is, you might think that this is a potential form because we've got our e here, but just keep in mind that we've got two exceptions, well, they're not exceptions, but they're kind of tricky words to get around, okay? So mieru, this doesn't mean able to see. Think of this more as visible. Something is visible or not. And this is audible. Alright, just remember these two words. Like kikeru, can you know, are you able to hear? Mirareru, are you able to see? It's different from something being visible and audible, by the way. So for example, you can see a movie for free because your friend let you in, right? That would be mirareru. Because the ability has come about because your friend has got you in. But you have no problem physically seeing the movie. It's not, that wasn't really the problem. You could see the movie, you just had to pay for it. So then you would say eiga ga mieru. I can see the movie, as in I have the ability to do it. Alright, so just keep that in mind, what's happening here. Alright, so this is just the negative. So I went into the underground, the subway I guess. Fuji-san, so Mount Fuji, ga mienaku natta. Mienaku natta. Okay, that's pretty much all I wanted to approach with English here. Okay, so this is just I think a pretty good covering of this suru and naru used with our yo ni particle. Really important part of Year 12 Japanese grammar, and I would just kind of go over these sentences and try and think of things where you do something, there's some kind of effort, and there's then a change into something else. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like and a comment if you can. It really helps me out if you guys do that, but also if you've got something that particularly you'd want me to cover, please just leave a comment and I'll make a video about that. If you want some private lessons, give me a message. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, and thank you so much for watching.